What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast and I'm finally back from holiday, so apologies for the slightly fewer videos and of course no streams over the past week. I recorded a few videos before I went away, but obviously not quite enough to release every single day that I was away, but the daily uploads and streams should now be back. I also uploaded a few YouTube shorts over the past week with a fairly positive reception, so please let me know if I should continue making more shorts. I hadn't actually uploaded any YouTube shorts in nearly 3 years for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I feel like the type of audience that watches short form content doesn't really watch the long form content, so growing my channel with subscribers from short form content wouldn't actually really help my channel all that much, and actually having a bunch of subscribers that are just not going to click on any long videos actually kind of hinders the channel, which is a little bit annoying, but that is how YouTube works. And then more importantly, I just don't have a ton of storage space on my phone, so pretty much as soon as I've recorded battles on my phone, I'll transfer them over to my PC immediately and start making a video. However, I would make short form content from my phone. But anyways, it's not really that deep, but let me know if you want to see some more shorts. They would not be replacing any long form videos, by the way. It would literally just be extra content. Also, Pokemon Champions just released on mobile, and a lot of people have been asking me if I'll be making content for that game. At the moment, I haven't started playing it yet, and I know very little about the game and the battle mechanics, as Go is actually my only Pokemon game that I've ever played. However, I can make a second channel where I'd be happy to upload some Champions content once I've gotten the hang of it, so let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Now finally, onto the actual video, and this team are running a triple buffed Shadow team in the Sunshine Cup with Rhyperior on Drill Run, and then both Bayleaf and Abomasnow on Energy Ball. Now I have to say, Rhyperior is a bit of a menace in this cup. In the Open Great League, I feel like there are just way too many threats that you have to worry about, being double weak to water and grass, as well as being single weak to ice, fighting, steel and ground. But in this meta, it feels like the only super hard counter that you're going to see quite commonly is going to be Water Gun Quagsire, as you can still put in a ton of work into most other things. Obviously, grass types with grass fast move pressure are a huge issue, but they don't seem to be super common. That being said, I'm running on myself with Magical Leaf Bayleaf as a hard answer to Quagsire and to bait out any potential fire types that Abomasnow really does not want to see. I got off to a bit of a slow start with the set going slightly negative, but then went on a 17-3 run in my next 4 sets with a lot of very dominant wins. So with that being said, let's finally get into the question of the day. What has been your sleeper pick for the Sunshine Cup meta so far? Maybe a Pokemon that you think is really strong into the current meta that no one else is really using, but may gain popularity as the week progresses. Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the very first battle, and we're going to see Shadow Rhyperior into Credilli. Now on the face of it, this seems like a really bad matchup, being a grass type into a ground and rock type Pokemon. However, most Credilli are on acid that is double resisted. Here we go straight for Drill Run, as we do still carry the threat of a potential superpower, and also most Credilli, despite the fact that they will have access to Grass Knot, are going to bait there with a Rock Tomb, and what we want to do is force a shield before they can debuff my attack stat. Now they come in with a Ferret, I'm coming in with my Bayleaf, and they will just narrowly reach a Swift before we get to Energy Ball, but we are just narrowly also able to tank it, reach the Energy Ball, and Energy Ball is going to get the knockout. They come back in with the Credilli. I'm actually going to come back in with my Rhyperior. I have quite a lot of energy here, so we are now going to look to overfarm, and once again, going to fire off the Drill Run, not on perfect timing, but I do want to throw before they can potentially throw a Rock Tomb and debuff my attack stat once again. So here, I'm going to shield. This time they full send the Grass Knot. They're going to swap out into Miltank, but we can go straight for Rock Wrecker. Rock Wrecker is a Blast Burn clone. It does huge damage. Miltank, as the name suggests, is fairly tanky, but this is just a body slam. We can tank that ourselves. Go for the full farm down, come out with the Drill Run loaded, and Drill Run will be enough damage here up against the Credilli to get the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to open there into the next battle. We're going to see Rhyperior into Shadow Blaziken. Now, if they're on counter, then this is actually a pretty tricky matchup, and definitely still where we want to see it, because we do have Mud Slap damage to hit for super effective damage. However, if you do end up seeing more Blaziken on counter, then potentially this team won't really work for you. However, here, we get quite lucky. I had to kind of call that they weren't on Sludge Bomb there, because if we shield and they farm down with Blaziken, we are in a huge world of trouble there. So, we get lucky, we do call that they're not on Sludge Bomb, we can now come in with Rhyperior. They should actually reach back-to-back Aura Spheres here, and they will. However, they're going to swap out into their final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Steelix, and unfortunately for them, this is already game over. We can go for Duron. Duron grabs the final shield. I don't need to shield a Psychic Fangs. It's not really going to deal too much damage here, and of course, that Blaziken is on Ember. That is resistant fast move pressure. Duron gets the knockout. We can just commit to the full Mudslap farm down, so the opponent concedes the match there. So, GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, we are going to see a bit of a tricky Pokemon for this team. Despite the fact that I've got a Rock-type and an Ice-type Pokemon, they are going to outpace me here. They've also got access to Duron. And of course, Abomasnow, whilst we can deal super effective damage, is also going to take super effective damage here. So what we're going to do, instead, bank a ton of energy, catch the second Duron onto our Abomasnow, see if they want to choose to stay in here, which they are, and now we're going to fire for the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to hit for super effective damage. It will get the knockout, and the fact that they're shielding means clearly they don't have a great response to Abomasnow, so I also kind of need the Powder Snow damage to farm down the the Fearow in the end game. So here we actually use our shield, we grab the final shield there, and we've got the Rock Wrecker already loaded. So of course, Rock Wrecker, huge damage, it gets the one shot. Their final Pokemon gonna be a Ludicolo, and they're on Astonish, so we're not taking huge damage from the fast moves. Rock Wrecker does big damage there. Unfortunately, the Mudslaps are resisted, so it doesn't quite put them into farm down range, but we can just swap into Bayleaf, catch the Weather Ball there, commit to a resisted Magical Leaf farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle, and this is actually the very first battle I did with this team, leading into a Fury Cutter Lurantis. That is honestly one of the worst core breakers we can see for this team, and then we're going to see a Kanto Ninetales as well, so things are not looking great for us at all. Of course, very likely that they've got Energy Ball for coverage this season, which very spammy, and honestly puts us in a really tricky situation. They've got so much energy here, it's very likely that they reach back-to-back charge moves, and I don't really want to double shield my Rhyperior. So we're actually going to swap out. I tried to catch the Energy Ball here. Could have been very risky if they didn't quite reach it, and then instead went for a Weather Ball instead. But either way, we're going to see Shadow Piloswine coming in. I did not realize I would lose CMP in this matchup, and if they end up no-shielding here, that is definitely game over. So we go for the undercharge. It still gets the knockout, and there is just literally nothing I can do here. So fair play. That Lurantis, especially with a 2-shot advantage, just going to decimate my team, so we concede the match. But into the next battle, and I have to say, this is a big reason why my team did so well. Of course, we just lost that last game due to RPS, but here, this is the most common team that I saw in this meta on day one. I think I saw it maybe 5 times, slightly different variations a few times, with the lead being a slightly different Pokemon, but either way, it's going to be Macargo, Quagsire, most of the time with Water Gun, sometimes with Mudshot still, and then the final Pokemon is going to be the Fearow, and so the opponent realizing there's not much they can do there, and so they just concede the match. So into the next battle, we're going to see the exact same lead matchup here. Is it going to be the exact same team? The opponent is going to be swapping out. It's going to be that Water Gun Quagsire. And so now we come in with the Shadow Bayleaf. Again, they should be reaching a Stone Edge, but Bayleaf, very bulky Pokemon actually. So we're able to tank that. They come back in with the Macargo. However, I don't think we're going to reach back-to-back Ancient Powers this time around. However, it doesn't really matter all that much, as now we can come back in with the Shadow Rhyperior. I don't need to shield this. However, I am going to shield anyways. And their final Pokemon is going to be that Fearow. So of course, we can grab that final shield back from the Fearow. The opponent is going to use the shield there and then fire off the charge straight away, which means we can now shield here as they fire off the Duron. We can overfarm by a single Mudslap, fire off the Rock Wrecker, and even debuff. This is clearly going to get the KO there. They come back in with Macargo. We're able to Mudslap farm it down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Clodsire in the lead. So this is going to be a great matchup for me, and the opponent is choosing to stay in. I'm going to fire off the Duron just before they reach a potential Earthquake. However, you're going to see Duron dealing slightly less damage this season actually is the difference between winning the zero shield scenario. So I swap out, I catch the Earthquake onto my Bayleaf where it's resisted. They're going to come in with Talonflame, and do they know about Ancient Power? Ancient Power coming through. Ancient Power is unfortunately shielded. We get a boost there. Doesn't really make a difference at all there. So, of course, we get off a single boosted Magical Leaf, which is still double resisted anyways. We're now going to come back in with the Rhyperior. I kind of have to shield because they might be on Bravebird, but they Flame Charge bait me. This is also just going to be a Flame Charge or potentially also a Fly, but either way, that actually is going to put me into range where they can just fully Incinerate farm me down there. That is... oh, that is really painful. So at this point, Abomasnow, we've got no play whatsoever. Flame Charge gets the one-shot. And despite the fact that we are a Rock-type Pokemon resisting all of the damage there, we end up going down to fast pressure from the Talonflame and losing that game. But into the next battle, we're going to see a Gourgeist in the lead. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Licky Licky. I'm going to stay in here, going for Drill Run, hoping to grab a shield there with the threat of a potential superpower. However, this time around, it does not work out. But instead, they're going to go for a Shadow Ball. They are just barely going to miss out on the next Shadow Ball, which is huge for me. And Bayleaf, of course, taking super effective damage from the Incinerates. However, they are non-stab, so we're actually going to be able to reach 2 Ancient Powers here, and I'm really hoping the opponent does just let this go through. The opponent get a no-shield once again. That is really nice for me, because Abomasnow, whilst yes, we're an Ice-type Pokemon, we're going to take double super effective damage from the Incinerates, but they blind throw the Seed Bomb, and then we fully farm them down. Their final Pokemon, a Gastrodon, which they've got no chance in beating my Abomasnow, and so they just concede the match. So, GG swap on there into the next battle. We're going to see Credilli in the lead once again. This time around, they are on Bullet Seed, so I will be forced to swap out there because we are taking huge damage from the fast moves. We're going to see a Rock Tomb coming through. They're now going to swap into Clodsire, which really not a great matchup for me, especially since they've just debuffed me. As you're going to see, 2 Energy Balls will come nowhere near close enough to getting the KO, but the opponent is actually going to do me a huge favor. They're not committing to a farm down, instead going straight for Sludge Bomb. And actually, again, they're going for Sludge Bomb, which is double resisted, by the way, so we do not need to shield. That does hardly any damage whatsoever, and unfortunately they do reach another Sludge Bomb, but once again, not going to do much damage at all. Now here, I'm going to swap into my Abomasnow, get the energy advantage, because now I can outpace them before they reach a potential Rock Tomb. Weather Ball is going to be shielded. I'm going to use my shield here as well. Unfortunately, of course, they are now going to debuff me with a Rock Tomb, but their final Pokemon is a Shadow Toucannon. So we can go straight for Weather Ball here. We are going to just barely outpace them here. Weather Ball, gonna grab the final shield. I could potentially just let this move go through here and then sweep with the Rhyperior. However, I'm gonna play this safe. We've got the energy for the Weather Ball, so I will just throw this straight away. And actually, Rhyperior has so much energy here. It doesn't even matter if we reach the Weather Ball or not. And because this is kind of a Rhyperior showcase, I'm gonna swap out. Rock Wrecker gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG swap on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. So, of course, not great for me. I'm going to be swapping out, and the opponent's going to come in with a Licky Licky. Now, this is definitely a matchup that I can flip in the, I believe, one-shield scenario here if they let the first move go through, which they do. Now, I can tank a single Shadow Ball. However, what I'm going to do, shield the first one, just because if they land the Shadow Ball, they can just set off for Body Slams, whereas now they do have to full send another Shadow Ball, which means they will not be reaching a third charge move. We get the full farm down, but unfortunately, they're going to have a Force Palm Breloom, which is another big core breaker for this team. However, they end up no shielding here. That is quite nice for me, and because Rhyperior just has no play up against the Kanto Marowak, we're just going to come in, force them to throw some energy, and hopefully Abomasnow can go for the Powder Snow farm down here. They actually swap out straight away, which is a smart play there, realizing Breloom is going to be farmed down by whatever comes in, and now I really just need to be able to shield once, commit to the farm down, but they just narrowly reach a last second Rock Slide, living on 1 HP in a dream. Rock Slide gets the knockout there, and unfortunately I end up losing that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. Going to see Talonflame in the lead, which is a positive matchup for me. The opponent going to be swapping out into Dunsparce. I'm going to bank a Drill Run and then swap into my Bayleaf. So Bayleaf going to be able to take the Rock Slide relatively comfortably here as we are fairly bulky. However, if they are desperate for it, they can flip this matchup in the 2-shield scenario now that I have let both moves go through there. But I should still be able to reach another charge move before they fully farm me down. So they shield once, and they are unfortunately going to have to double shield here, which is absolutely fine for Rhyperior, because Rhyperior absolutely loves it when all shields are down. Now, of course, they might have a Mud Boy in the back, in which case, of course, Rhyperior not really going to appreciate that, but we've got the 2-shield advantage. They've actually got a Shadow Credilli. They realize, since they're on Acid, there is just no way they can win that game, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's over there GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see double in the lead. Since we are going to take super effective fast food pressure, I am going to swap out straight away, and I swap into my Shadow Bayleaf. We're going to go straight for Energy Ball here, throwing this before they can potentially debuff me with the Rock Tomb. And of course, Rock Tomb is neutral here. Grass Knot will be resisted, so Rock Tomb will be the move that they will throw. But we can now look to overfarm. Bayleaf is very bulky, but it will just barely win CMP in this matchup, so Energy Ball gets the knockout. They come back in with the double, and at this point, I'm just going to no shield. They go straight for Body Slam, which is fine with me. We're going to come in with Rhyperior. I do expect they've probably got Body Slam and Wild Charge, in which case Rhyperior will actually just completely wall the charge moves there. But we're going to come in with the Abomasnow as they swapped out straight away into Swampert. And here we don't really need to full send the Energy Ball. We can just settle for the Weather Balls. The Powder Snow damage will add up over time and eventually put them into range where Weather Ball will get the knockout. Now here, we're going to look to overfarm. I believe they are one away from the next charge move. I'm actually going to look to try and catch the charge move here. However, the opponent actually swaps into double. So this is still fine with me. We can go straight for Drill Run here. I maybe should have overfarmed just a little bit, but either way, Drill Run is going to get them fairly low, force them to throw straight away, and Body Slam, that's not going to put me into Mudshot farm down range, which means they have to overfarm here. But I believe Abomasnow is just barely going to be too tanky for a single sludge to get the knockout. So of course, all shields are down. We lose CMP, but we tank the sludge there. I don't see how much damage it does, but either way, Weather Ball will get the knockout. You can see that does actually get us fairly low, but we're able to tank it, get the KO with the Weather Ball, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. This is not a great matchup for me. We're going to see Shadow Cacturn in the lead. Once again, though, we do have the potential threat of a superpower, and actually, Drill Run probably gets the knockout anyways. So, we grab a shield advantage. We swap then into our Hard Answer, which I typically do not recommend because, yeah, they're going to have a Fire-type Pokemon in the back. I kind of expected that. However, I mean, there's just not much we can do with a Shadow Cacturn lead because if I choose to stay in with the Rhyperior, they fully farm me down, then it's just instantly game over. But now we come in with the Rhyperior. I'm going to shield here. I should still be able to Mudslap farm them down, despite the fact that they go for the Rock Tomb there. And let's see, they're going to come back in with the Cacturn. Is it going to be double Incinerate? Now, they do reach a charge move. However, they settle for the Trailblaze there. Unfortunately, yes, it is double Incinerate, and we narrowly don't quite reach the Ancient Power. We had the Draw Run, but there's no point throwing there. Incinerate gets the full farm down, and we end up losing that game. But GG's to opponent there into the next battle. Much better lead matchup for me as we're going to see a safe swap into Miltank where we can just stay in here, full send the Rock Wrecker. Rock Wrecker just narrowly doesn't get the KO again, which is really frustrating, forcing me to swap out there. I guess we didn't need to do that. However, I don't really want to use a shield on my Rhyperior when I know they're going to have a Blaziken, which can easily threaten shields. But I guess they do go for a very aggressive farm down, in which case I'm going to have to double shield the Rhyperior anyway, so maybe should have just stayed in there. Either way, they're going to go for the Aura Sphere. The opponent going to fire off the next one straight away, but that is not good charge move timing, which means I can Mudslap farm them down, so the opponent swaps out into their final Pokemon, which is going to be another Acid Cradilly. Now, this is a little bit tricky for me. I'm going to look to try and catch a charge move here onto Abomasnow, but it backfires, and the opponent also going to overfarm. Abomasnow, however, able to tank the Rock Tomb, reach the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is super effective. We're debuffed, however, so it doesn't get the knockout, and that is best case scenario for me because Blaziken doesn't get the farm down. We get the Mudslap farm down there instead, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I'm going to see Shadow Quagsire in the lead, of course. I'm going to have to swap out. I swap into my Hard Answer in the form of Shadow Bayleaf, but we've got Ancient Power here for coverage. Abomasnow would be completely destroyed by the Alola Marowak, so this is definitely the right play there, and the opponent is also forced to throw some energy. Potentially, they could have just barely got the farm down there, but either way, they play it safe. They've got back-to-back Bone Clubs, so it makes sense to throw there because they're still going to deal quite a lot of damage into my Rhyperior. Now, I did think about coming in with Abomasnow, but I think 2 Powder Snows wouldn't get the full farm down anyway, so whilst I would resist the fast food pressure, it wouldn't put me in the best position. Whereas now they're going to come in with Cradilly. We go for Weather Ball, we grab a shield there. We're actually going to get a bit of, we're actually going to be able to grab both shields here from this Cradilly as we go for back-to-back Weather Balls. And at this point, I'm also going to start shielding. Now, unfortunately, they can reach back-to-back Rock Tombs here, so potentially, maybe I should have just no-shielded. However, of course, that then gives the opportunity for the opponent to permanently debuff me with a Rock Tomb there. Here, they throw just before we reach the draw run. Very good timing. Arcatel gets the knockout. I'll be honest, I couldn't keep track of their energy. So at this point, we do just throw straight away. Energy Ball gets the knockout, but they can just barely get the full acid farm down. and unfortunately we end up losing that game there. But GG's up on there is the next battle. I'm going to see Rhyperior in the lead once again. And again, they're going to be on acid, so I'm happy to stay in here. And again, I'm going to throw this before they can potentially debuff me. Like I mentioned, most trainers with Rhyperior would just go straight for the Rock Tomb there, even though it is resisted damage, expecting to grab a shield. However, this one actually goes for the Grass Knot, which means hopefully this time around I can catch a resisted Grass Knot and not be debuffed on my Bayleaf. The opponent now going to come in with a shiny 2-cannon, but if they don't know, they're about to be hit by an Ancient Power. Ancient Power, not the best move, but 2-cannon, very glassy. So the opponent actually forced to throw some energy. They can't quite go for a full farm down. But that sets up Rhyperior to come in, much that farm down the 2-cannon. They're going to come in with a Swampert, but this is absolutely fine with me. We can go straight for Draw Run here. Draw Run actually not shielded. We swap into our Bomber Snow. They swap back into Rhyperior just to be fully farmed down. And so at this point, we've got back-to-back Weather Balls. There is nothing the opponent can do. So likely, they let the first move go through, and they do exactly that. Weather Ball gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's up on there into the final battle of this video, once again leading into a Talonflame. So Talonflame going to be a great match. Well, actually not that dominant of a matchup for me, unfortunately, because I am hitting for resisted fasting pressure. I'm going to resist everything they can throw, but a single Brave Bird would actually probably get the one shot from that range. So here we're going to come in. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to be down both shields here, which really does not put me in a great position. However, I'm going to go for Weather Ball. Likely they just let this move go through, and they're going to do exactly that. Now they come back in with the Talonflame, but a Bomber Snow actually going to be able to live 2 Incinerates here, which means the opponents, they either commit to the farm down and have to double shield, or they throw their energy straight away. So they're going to go for a Flame Charge, which is fine with me. We're going to come back in with the Rhyperior. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Dunsparce, and now we can go straight for Rock Wrecker. Rock Wrecker going to deal huge damage. We can swap out, catch the Charge Move here onto my Bayleaf. The opponent is going to be going for a Draw Run, which is resisted damage. We can now fully fast move farm them down here, and of course, we can now also reach an Ancient Power. Ancient Power, double super effective. It should be forcing the final shield, which means that's going to be game over, even if they commit to a full farm down. I think Rhyperior wins CMP, but they don't. Instead, they go for Flame Charge. We've got the Rock Wrecker loaded anyways, so we will be throwing immediately. Rock Wrecker gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.